call the meeting to order. First point of business is to review and accept our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Do we need to add or subtract anything with the Jewel lawsuit? Are we going to do that? Or are we just informational?
I think it's informational, and if you
Okay.
disagree, you should speak up.
I think it's informational, honestly. Okay, so anything else that we need to add or subtract from this?
I don't think so.
Okay. So, all those that approve the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Excellent. We have an agenda. Communications with parents, citizens, and staff. Hi, Allison. Nice to see you out there. We're going to talk to you in a few minutes. Board professional development. We don't have anything. Governance process policy. Before we start on that, I've had a couple of weeks since we did not have a meeting 2 weeks ago because we didn't have a quorum. And I can't yell at anybody here. Well, I'm not going to yell at anybody here for not letting me know that they were not coming to the meeting. But we did not get a quorum. So it's important that if you're not going to be able to make a meeting that you let me know, either via email, text, I'll give you my phone number, so that we don't waste people's time, because we were out in Leicester and we kept the principal, and we probably didn't need to do that. So anyway, so I just wanted to point that out. And then I've had a couple of weeks to think about where we're headed, and I wrote it down because I tend to forget things on the fly. Mm-hmm. So if you would bear with me for a minute while I read this out to you, okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've been reflecting on the work we've accomplished as a board over the last 6 months and wanted to take the time to reflect on the work we've done as well as the work we have moving forward. I appreciate your willingness to try a new approach to how we work, embracing the working group meetings that we meet here every third Wednesday of each month. And as a result of these meetings, I came up with some results. Whether you agree or disagree, it's up to you. We've started to build a base of engaged ambassadors that are contributing to the future of our schools. We're moving forward with obtaining a professional blueprint analysis of Otter Valley to determine costs involved with an enhanced middle school to present to the community at some point. We've identified ways to engage with the community, meeting with them where they're at, to include community events, school pickup, sporting events. We completed a board survey and a Facebook poll to help us better determine how the community prefers to interact with us and provide feedback to us. As a result of our Wednesday meetings, Derek wrote an op-ed for distribution to local newspapers, which was there a couple of weeks ago. Collectively, we passed the much-needed funding for the reconstruction of the entryway to Otter Valley here, which is going to look great, I think, when we see plans. We've explored key areas of communication that the board need to focus on, to include enhanced middle school costs, how it will ultimately impact our elementary schools, our move to policy governance, and we've also been talking about our declining enrollment, how it'll affect our USU, and how we will continue to provide equitable education to all of our kids. Having said that, there's been a lot of focus on how we engage with the community, but I wanted to take a minute to circle back on how we communicate with one another. As the board chair, my responsibility is to provide each of you with a sounding board. I want you to talk with me about questions you have, concerns, whatever you feel is necessary to do our jobs to the best of our ability as elected officials. We're trying something new this year, and while it may not feel like we're moving forward, we are. The work that we're doing to engage the community is very important, because if the board is doing a good job of engaging the community, confidence will improve, and so does student achievement. And that's ultimately our goal. With that said, today I'd like to focus on a couple of things. Number one, finalizing the viability guidelines that we've been having issues with, so hopefully we can hammer that out tonight. Communicating with select boards on behalf of the OVUU board and how that will look. Explore key messaging regarding the enhanced middle school, our move to policy governance and declining enrollment, and organizing a community event at either Sudbury or Leicester School in place of our second meeting in April on April 15th. Ooh, April 15th sucks. Sorry. I just realized what April 15th was. That's my deadline.
Tax day.
Tax day. Anyway, obviously I was in trance when I read that. Thank you for all your work, and I look forward to continuing the hard work that we've already been doing. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there.
Do you want?
Sure, I'll give it to, can you pass that to Charlene, please?
You didn't type it all? No, she talked way too fast.
What? I don't talk fast.
Bonnie?
Anyway, hi Bonnie, thanks for being here. Missed the best important part.
Best part?
Yep.
You can read it later.
Yeah, you can read it later. So anyway, so going forward, tonight we are going to be working on breakout working sessions to discuss 3 different things: our enhanced middle school exploration, our board community engagement, and our board communications to the community.
Can I
And
speak to that?
yes, you most certainly can.
So at our last meeting that we all met, we sort of identified key areas that you guys felt were important topics to communicate out, to the community as a whole. We talked a lot about communications planning, that sort of thing. Tonight, Lori and I thought it was a good idea to break out as groups. We sort of teetered on, we discuss as a group, and we break out as groups. I think discussion sort of flows a little bit better than break out. But we're gonna, each of us talk about key messages. So like enhanced middle school, what do we actually need to be saying to people about the enhanced middle school? Right now is providing an update. Right now, is it recognizing that it might have an impact on our small school? Like, what does that messaging look like? And actually writing out those messages so then we can start to either, we can write another op-ed, we can push it out on social media, we can do like whatever that looks like. It's one thing to say we need to talk about the enhanced middle school, but what does that message actually look like? So we're going to be building that out. Policy governance. What do we want to tell people about policy governance? What's important for people to know? Why was that switch important for us? So we'll be driving through that conversation. And then the last thing, declining enrollment. How do we sort of recognize what that might look like? How it impacts us, how we continue to provide equitable education, whatever those key, sort of subjects are under that declining enrollment umbrella. I was gonna do 3 groups. I think maybe we do 2. And we're each in those groups gonna discuss those 3. You guys are gonna have 10 minutes each for each category. We'll talk about it, actually blow out messaging. And what's nice about that is when you break up, what I sort of look at is what was similar. What did everybody sort of want, to communicate out to the community? And then we'll refine that and then start, we'll build like a full sort of dissemination, like work with Jean, Lori, and actually get those messages out there. So whether it's, Facebook, regular Facebook posts, we're going to ramp up on that activity. I told Jean, when I look at sort of organic change, because that's what we've been doing, just by having consistency and as a group, transparency, and just trying to do that, our Facebook engagement is increasing, and we haven't been really doing anything different. By 200% in certain areas, 567% in just Facebook page followers and likes over the last 28 days. 89 people now like the page. Now, who knows? Was it because there was a snow day? I don't know. But either way, I asked Jean too, I want to start looking at the analytics in Let's Talk, because that's what starts telling me, okay, people are actually doing something. Where you can't quite put your finger on it. Why? Well, it's because of the work that we're collectively doing. So it's happening. And I think I told you this, it takes time, but I guess I just wanted you guys to know that the work that you're doing is working. And it's going to continue to gain momentum the more work that you put in. So it's there. I'm going to be getting, I'll be able to dig into the Let's Talk more when Jean gets information. So I'll have more on that at our next meeting. But I just wanted to add that.
Sure.
Thanks,
No, thank you. So, actually, now that you've added that, why don't we just go ahead and do that?
You wanna do that first,
Yeah,
then
I think
do
we'll
the
do that
rest of the
first.
stuff?
And we
Okay.
were gonna do it first anyway if ambassadors were here, so let's go
Sure.
ahead and do that.
But it is school vacation, so our
Yeah,
ambassadors
Yeah,
may not make it.
You know what,
Yep.
totally, and last meeting was a little funky too, so we'll follow up. Jean and I agreed that because of the cyclical work, and it's really, it doesn't necessarily, the third Wednesday March meeting is a little funny. We don't want to start promoting, how do our third Wednesday meeting, and then the first one goes, oh, sorry, we're not having it. So, we're going to come up with a full sort of push again, following for that April meeting and then so on. So it'll be back to the I was going to have you guys just count off 1, 2, and then we'll break out. Maybe, one group on this side, one group on that side. I have papers that are written out, and, we'll need a scribe in each group just to write down some of the key. You can even do bullet points. I don't need full blown out stuff, because I can work with
Actually,
just split like that?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think we can
do
just
it.
put, okay, great. So, we're back.
Thank you for doing that. And so I just want to stress that, this exercise is really to identify some of the key things that we need to dig into a little farther. I think Greg said the timeline is a great idea to sort of give people a visual about what this, and I think for you guys conceptually, that's what I want you to think about. These messages that we're going to be developing are going to be a result of this work you did, and then, obviously we need to backfill that with facts and information, and then we need to decide sort of in what order do we tell people things, and how do we sort of tell this story, which is where obviously I'll work with you guys and we'll build that out, and that story will be told in different ways. Like I said, it may be an op-ed, continual posts on Facebook, because we are seeing some increased engagement there. And then what messages do we need to start, sending to parents, make sure they're stuffed in folders and sent home, and what do we, maybe what does our working group look like in April? Is that something that we sort of dive into the enhanced middle school and make that the sort of the focus, or is it more about the impact it's going to have on our, union as a whole, or, things? So this is really just a starting point. I know it feels like we've had this conversation multiple times, but it's very important. So now we're drilling down farther, and we're actually going to start putting this stuff into action. So now what I want to do is sort of just talk about sort of the key takeaways. I mean, we can talk about it as a group. These guys didn't really dive too far into policy governance, or they started to sort of talk about declining enrollment. So why don't you guys tell me what's helpful for you? I can just take what you guys wrote and sort of streamline it a little bit, and then, we can discuss in a Google Doc. I mean, you tell me what you think is sort of the next best step.
I would like, since we did do the breakout sessions, that we at least hit the high points from each group on whatever, and if they didn't cover something, then they didn't.
Yeah.
So that people at home know that what we're talking about, and then we can always flush it out more at our next meeting.
Okay. Well, and I'll have it flushed before then. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
So that's sort of the goal. Well, can I just ask this? When is the next meeting? If the third week?
It would be the third week in April then.
Which is going to be our working group. So maybe we push that working group to May. We just didn't want to push it too far. Or maybe we have a different date. We can talk about that.
What's wrong with April? Is April vacation? Is that the
problem? No, that's not it. So I realize that we're going to have a regular meeting the third Wednesday.
That's your reorganization meeting in March?
Right, reorganization, so that might take some time.
It will, plus you're having a presentation on proficiency-based learning from the high school, because our consultant is here at that particular date.
Okay.
I know I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but if we're feeling
I just don't want to lose steam, and I think, and I feel like if we're going to lose it in March if we don't.
No, that's fine. I guess the other thing we could do is meet in April and just pick a different date in April. Mm-hmm. It would technically be 3 things in April versus it taking the Wednesday meeting. So keep the Wednesday meeting the third Wednesday in April, and then schedule a working group somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Maybe. You know what I mean? Maybe the last week in April, or after we've met, that third Wednesday.
Okay.
And is the goal of that meeting again to finalize things of what we're talking about right now? Because
well, nothing of this is ever going to be final. We're always going to be flushing.
Yeah.
But I think what we really need to do is we really need to start pushing some stuff out. We really need to be talking the same lingo. We need to be able to know who's talking to who, and that we're all saying the same thing as a board.
To your point, yes. So one thing that Jean had asked and Lori had asked coming out of these meetings is to sort of have some messages that you guys can sort of lean against if you're talking to community members or going to select board meetings. Like, what does that look like? So we, sort of have things to say. And so initially Jean had said, hey, let's just do that as a recap at the end of the meeting. I feel like I need a little bit of time to process, so I'm going to send you guys an email tomorrow and just sort of, high level, sort of here's what you can tell people that we've been discussing or working on or whatever, and you guys can respond back if you, or just take it, but that'll be sort of what provides you with a unified message.
Yes.
Okay, does that help? And then we won't lose steam, because now what's going to happen is I'm going to take this information that you guys gave me and maybe say to you guys, listen, here's sort of the order that I see. We want to push out, multiple message per week on social media, for example. Here's what I see as something that needs extra attention, and we need to send this, out to families and to staff. Jean's been doing a good job of updating staff. You know, obviously there's other things that impact just the staff besides what we're doing, but trying to balance those things. So that's sort of coming out of here. You know, I've always said it's the work we do in between the meetings too, which is a lot of where I try to come in and keep that sort of moving along. So that will be the goal, yes. So we will start, the goal will be to start sending some stuff out in the next week or two, you know?
Okay.
And maybe identify, hey, it'd be helpful to have another op-ed. I think the more we can do that kind of stuff, the better, because people read, you know, the Brandon newspaper, for example, Front Porch Forum, you know, so we'll start building out those actual messages. And you guys will be engaged in that too, because you're the ones that are pushing it out on Front Porch Forum, for example, talking to select boards, you know, that sort of thing. So we need to make sure that we are doing that in unison. But I agree, we need to start just getting it out there and
Right.
continuing the engagement.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
So enhanced middle school,
Bonnie was our scribe.
all right.
Okay, so that means I don't have to talk, right?
That's
Because
right,
that's-
Bonnie, you have been, no.
You've been
Okay, so-
nominated.
We hit some bullet points here, in no particular order, just as they came to us. In terms of the messaging, the broad question is, what does the community need to know about this enhanced middle school model? We need to answer the question, why? And we see that sort of divided into two different whys, like, why from a programmatic standpoint? What is it about the middle school model that we want to provide for our 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders? And then the why are we looking to build when we have declining enrollment? I think those are two very different whys. Next question was, how will enhanced middle school impact the smaller schools and the overall district? How will middle schoolers sort of be kept in their own areas? In other words, not significantly mixed 12th graders with 5th graders. We also were cautious, though, that we didn't want to send a message that there's something absolutely horrible and bad about high schoolers, that, you know, middle schoolers have to be taught to stay away from them. That we wanted to have healthy interactions between middle school and high school students, but that we felt that middle school students needed to have sort of their own physical area. I guess that's how we...
term healthy interactions. Yep, okay.
And those were our main points around enhanced middle school.
Great. And so what we'll do then next is start to build out and answer those questions, and we can do that as a group, and start to build that story. Okay, thanks, guys. I'm gonna let these guys talk to enhanced middle school next.
Yeah, I'm not scribing anymore.
Lesson learned, don't scribe, Becky.
It's always pushed on me.
Well, you guys sort of broke out pros and
We
cons,
did.
right?
So we really we started with discussing worries, concerns, parental concerns around the experience and possibility of closing the Sudbury school. Is it a plan to close more schools? And then I sort of wanted us to dive deeper, and we don't need to answer these questions, but we need to address the fact that there are pros and cons to both, and to let people know that we acknowledge them. So we came up with a list of what the pros and cons might be to people.
Perfect.
A couple of the things that are important points just in general are, one of the biggest messages from the merge was equity, and this would hit that big point. And the other was, it's really a big step to really unify our whole community instead of having big and small, it's just us. So then, do you want me to just list out our pros and cons?
If you
All right.
If you don't mind, because it might answer some of the questions that you guys raised, and then, yeah, I mean, we can just.
Okay. So, pros, opportunities afforded in a larger school are more viable. Behavior stuff, guidance, library, PE, art, music, language. Equity can only be achieved by consolidation. Ability to come together for sports, rec, and other options accessible. Repurposing of the small schools, so being able to do something else with them. And then 5th grade students being able to commingle and have, with curriculum and peers. Cons, losing small school feel. If we keep it open, affordability as the numbers decrease and state funding decreasing, there would still be declining enrollment and driving difficult decisions. Will families stop attending when the numbers are too low anyway? Transportation, how long kids are on the bus now and how much more that could be. Again, repurposing of small schools. And then two others that I think are gonna be pretty big would be, and we all do, test grades right now as they are, how would we address that stuff? And also student and issues such as, right now, if dueling, smoking, sex, bullying, harassment are big things that we're dealing with here at this school, how will parents feel bringing even younger kids here?
Awesome, so that's helpful, and I'll take, we'll grow this a little bit.
Yeah.
Start to answer some of those questions for sure. Okay, but I was explaining to these guys, and to everybody, I think, it's really, like Becky said, it's just recognizing that we are working on these things. It's not like we're taking this, plucking the solution out and going, this is gonna solve everything. Well, no, it's not. Realistically, we realize that there's gonna be ebbs and flows, pros and cons, we've got it. But what we're trying to do is minimize and just, provide the most equitable education we can to our entire group of students. And so really, if that is the root of everything that we're doing, we talked about that, if that's the goal, then you can't really argue with that, but, how we
Right.
get there.
But addressing the concerns instead of
Yeah.
just sweeping them.
Right, and that's not the goal either, but it's important to have it, be palatable for people, right? And, I always say, I bring it all back to human nature. What would you be able to hear, and what would make you want to actually get behind something? And that's sort of what we need to focus on here.
Yeah.
And recognizing that there's not gonna be an ideal solution for everybody, so it's really the larger body. Okay, awesome. So can you guys, next is policy governance. I realize that you guys didn't have much time to talk about policy governance, so what would be helpful is if you read off some of the things that you guys felt were important. And then, feel free to add
Sure.
anything, or yay or nay, or, you know what I mean? That would be helpful, I think.
Yay or nay. Okay, here's what we have for policy governance. Allows the board to focus on a big picture versus micromanaging the everyday operations of a school district. Enables the board to look forward and envision what could be. Policy governance enables us to be more efficient. It enables us to hold the superintendent accountable. I should have expanded that a little bit in ways that make sense. Under old models of governance, I think many superintendents, they don't know who their boss is or what they're supposed to do or what direction they're supposed to head in. Policy governance enables us to say, okay, here are the targets. Here's the things you're responsible for. Let us know, right, let us know how we're going. And then it helps us clarify our jobs. And we took a little stab at what we thought our jobs really were, which is to set policy and communicate with our communities. And then policy governance also allows us to sort of expand the areas of accountability along some pretty clear lines.
Awesome.
And did I leave anything out, guys? Did that
Anything
do
you
it?
guys want to add to that, or?
I just started to write and then Bonnie kind of covered it, but deeper understanding of what our role is, what Jean's role is, and even being able to, I've been on the board for a long time, and I feel like the monitoring reports have really helped me know more of what's going on, right? And we are thinking about those versus should we put cameras in the school, right? And that's important stuff, but that's Jean's job, and we don't have to waste our time doing that.
Awesome. Yeah, and another point to this is why it's also important. It's important for people to know how the board sort of runs, because, when everyone consolidated and it sort of, took the boards out of the small schools and, brought individual schools, I should say, not the small schools, but individual schools, and brought you guys here as a unified group. We want to let people know about the work, and we also want, people to want to be a part of that, right? That's another key component, right? And so, I think that's why it's also important to talk about policy and sort of, pull the veil off a little bit and say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it.
Bonnie, I forgot, I'm sure you did. Did you guys talk about being able to think deeper about student achievement?
Well, that was part of the Can't see anything without these. That was part of the, sort of enable us to envision what could be.
Great, okay.
Could we be a district where all of our children met the standard versus 54%?
Okay, great, yep.
38%, whatever.
Student achievement in there, Bonnie?
We didn't exactly
I
talk in
think
terms of
I-
student
because
achievement.
I think that student achievement is the superintendent's job, and our job is to hold the superintendent accountable. So we covered, it's our job to hold her accountable. The
So no,
academic
we
achievement
didn't
is-
specifically talk about student achievement.
You could add that at the end of that whole superintendent accountable for student achievement in the ends policy.
Yeah, maybe, if you don't mind, Bonnie, would you write that in, just so, I'm clear for building. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The other thing we talked about, but I don't know that we wrote down, is that it puts the most qualified people in charge of, we talked about how, I'm not a
Expertise,
curriculum
yeah.
specialist,
Oh, yeah.
so why am I weighing in on curriculum?
Well, actually, what we talked about is sort of, I'm going to use Lori's example if you don't mind, relocating expertise. Lori was talking, I think the experience is the same for all of us who have been on local boards back in, that you knew everything. You knew who moved here, you knew who was having trouble paying their lunch bill, you knew how you could help, you knew all that. And you sometimes made decisions for which you didn't have any expertise. Right. We want this math program versus that one.
Gotcha.
And so what the policy governance has allowed us to do is to assign individuals with the appropriate expertise to the appropriate set of decisions.
Okay.
So we're not, as a board, picking math programs or reading programs or things like that, but rather Jean and her administrators and her teachers who have the expertise to make those kinds of decisions are now making those decisions.
So again, it goes back to superintendent accountability. So curriculum-based decisions are with administration, right? And then the board is holding those people.
It goes to those ends policies that,
Okay. So curriculum, I got it, okay. I think that's, I guess as a community member, that to me is important to know, you know, and people may not understand that, right? And it sort of goes back to the shift of the consolidated board, and what does that mean for everybody? Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to build a story in my head a little bit. I get it. Okay. Is that good for everybody? Awesome. All right, so next is sort of declining enrollment, maintaining equity. And sort of that conversation. I know you guys touched on it a little bit, right? Becky, or?
Mm-hmm, very little bit.
Okay. You guys want to go first?
Sure. So the few points that we, just said was obviously because of declining enrollment, we're looking into the enhanced middle school and how that can better our community. How do we provide equitable education in the whole community? Lighting Lester Sudbury, no. OVA numbers show smaller numbers from Lester going into Sudbury. And then Derek and I sort of go off on a tangent, but I think it goes along with community centers and declining enrollment, which is somehow figuring out how to be more community center based, whether it's in our schools or repurposing schools and having opportunities for kids to see doctors, dentists, or teen centers or whatever right here in schools somehow and make them accessible.
You guys have talked about that quite a bit, like how, if this were to,
Right.
yeah, okay. It'd be interesting to explore that a little bit. And again, the message there is, in light of any of these
Yeah,
changes,
yeah.
The goal would be to keep those community centers alive.
Right.
In some form. Okay. Thank you. You're up, Bonnie.
yeah, this was the last one we talked about. It's funny, our list grows shorter as we move from question to question. We talked a fair amount about this, but basically it's around 3 points. Number one is that when we're talking about enrollment, we have to be clear and specific and give facts.
Right.
We acknowledge that because of declining enrollment, change has to happen. We can't maintain the status quo with declining enrollment. And then, right at the end, I don't think we really flushed this out, but what we have done here is that we're in the process of developing a viability guideline, which we think will help us deal with this declining enrollment.
Yeah, and we talked about having like a full sort of communication around the viability guidelines as well, you know, to explain to people what that means and be sensitive to, you know, to all of it, so definitely. Good, great segue.
It sure is.
Guys, thank you so much.
You're gonna hand your papers to
Yes.
Allison for her to do. So the segue that she's talking about is, actually looking at that policy,
Oh, here's your pencil.
CE, the OBU school class size and school viability guidelines. It should be in your packet. We have discussed it numerous times, in the past, and we did make some major changes to it the last time.
Yeah, you asked me to take what you did last time and come back with more changes.
Yeah.
It's very near the front, actually. It's like right
It's
after
here.
Huck Hill.
Is it?
It's page 5 of
Yeah, something
34.
like that.
Oh, okay, thanks. So,
So the front is the same, it's the back where it's blue.
okay, so I'm gonna open it up here to you guys. I'm hoping that you reread the changes that we made, which I can hardly read because it apparently
in
wasn't
blue,
blue.
right?
It's
Well,
in blue.
it's not on here, but it's very
yeah, I'm
light.
looking at it
Would you
right
like
now.
me to read it?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
So, instead of everything else, the new school viability guidelines proposal says, when the enrollment of a K-6 school is anticipated to fall below the minimum class size average for all 7 grades for 3 consecutive years, the board will hold a public discussion and gather a community input about the future of the school, considering its location, proximity to other district schools, capacity of other district schools, operational and staff costs, and educational offerings.
And we retracted something. What did
We
retract?
retracted all the rest of it.
Okay.
So what people said they didn't like was the number. So it used to say with enrollment of at least 96, now it says fall below the minimum class size average. And there was a request to clarify that it's falling below the average for 3 years, so tried to build that in better. The rest is pretty much the same.
And so the interpretation of this is that the discussion could start just in the anticipation of 3
Yes.
consecutive years.
Yes.
It's not 3 years go by
That was something else
prompting.
you wanted
So
clarified.
it does seem pretty clear to me, I assume to everybody else, that if it's anticipated,
Because we usually have a
for
pretty
this
good
to
idea.
happen, it's just prompting the conversation to gather.
And can I ask you this now, right now, is there any, I'm sorry, Bonnie, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, is there any type of communication, like, right now, is there any intentional communication with, say, a smaller, or any school that's gonna be impacted by declining enrollment? Are we having any type of communication? It's just sort of like left in the open right now, right?
And
Right
it
now-
comes up every budget.
It comes up every budget, and then,
Okay.
but,
not a
and
good
so
time to
I'd
bring
like
it
to try and move it away from budget, because I
Yes.
think then everyone's like, oh, it's about the money, which it shouldn't be, anyway.
Right.
And then I think it's important that it also, this would allow us, hopefully, if we word it right and we use it right, to at least let people know that this is out there. And so it's one of those talking points that what we discussed for the declining enrollment.
Absolutely.
And it also gives us the ability to say, hey, we said that once this happened, we would talk about it, and it allows us to go out and talk to the communities without fear of a school closure imminent.
Absolutely, no, absolutely, and so that's awesome. I just was wondering,
So,
from a communication standpoint,
right.
right now, it
We
feels
have
like
not.
it's just, which is
Right.
great.
I think we
That's-
were waiting for this, or at least
No,
I was.
I think absolutely. I was just curious, you know, what that looks like right now. And, okay, so it only comes up, it needs to be proactive,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. So that's helpful. That's why I think any communication around it is going to be good. I mean, it's going to be positive. It's going to increase that transparency, which is hugely helpful for everybody.
I
because-
can comment as well. The other reason for this is, rather than being reactive every budget season, is the newly merged board really wanted to take a thoughtful approach to the declining enrollment.
Right.
And that's why you started the task force that went on for 18 months. And this was an outgrowth of the task force, is how can we be thoughtful and have these thoughtful community discussions as opposed to a reactive budget discussion.
Which is great for messaging. So thoughtful approach.
So Derek, and then Bonnie, if you, go ahead.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah.
on it. I move that we adopt these revised viability guidelines.
Okay. Anyone want a second? Okay, so discussion. Thanks. Barry.
It's all great, but just one thing that looks like it may not be consistent. I think it's great on the second page that we went in the blue, when the enrollment of a K through 6 school we talk about, but yet on the first page, at the end of the third paragraph, we say the guidelines by which a superintendent may recommend closure of a small school. I think that should probably just say a school.
I agree.
Yep.
Good catch. Cool.
Okay.
Very good.
I'll accept that as a friendly
All these
amendment.
iterations, and you're the first to catch that.
Yeah, I like that, because
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
picking
Well,
at me.
honestly, they're all small schools.
By that
School,
time.
we have a small.
Right.
By that time.
We don't have a big school anywhere.
No, we don't.
Yeah,
Even
exactly.
Nashville is a small school.
We don't.
So,
We don't.
okay.
But given
Else?
that,
Yep.
should the blue also say when the enrollment of a school is anticipated to fall below the minimum class size? Because, yeah, maybe down the road, it'll be a K-4 school.
Well, currently, I think it should remain K6.
Then we could
If
adopt it.
something like that happens, then we would change it. Okay. Bonnie.
So I'm just looking for clarification. When we took the number 95 out and we inserted,
It was
What?
actually 96.
oh, whatever, 96, what do we mean when we say, when the enrollment of a K-6 school is anticipated to fall below the minimum class size average for all 7 grades? What does that mean?
Well, K through 6 is 7 grades.
But if it falls below the minimum for K through 5 and 6 is above the minimum, does that mean we don't start that discussion?
For me, it equates back to when we said 96 before, which is when we were looking at these actual numbers and
Yep.
added up the minimal. And so, yeah.
But
So it's not, in other words, it's not that a grade falls below, but that the average of the whole school does not even meet the minimum.
Did it be
Is that
anticipated
these
to
here
fall-
on the front where it says EQS recommendations, it says average across all schools is
No,
fewer
it's
than 20
actually adding up
students?
the minimal column
So it's actually adding up the minimum
for the
column.
grades under
Okay.
consideration.
Okay.
But do you understand why what I'm
think I
saying
do.
with that wording?
I think I understand.
But
what you're saying.
it's the word average.
No, it's the word all. When it falls below the minimum class size average for all 7 grades, I could make an argument if the 3rd grade is above the
Yeah.
class size average, we can't start this process because all
That's-
7 grades
I
aren't
understand
below.
what you're saying.
That's an interpretation.
Yeah, so I do think we need to somehow remedy that, because I see
Okay, how?
that too.
Come on, Bonnie.
I don't know how, see, I'm sorry, I don't usually say this, but I wasn't in favor of taking the 96 out because I didn't know how we could do it. I don't
Across.
know how we can phrase this, or unless we said,
How about this? Is anticipated to fall below the minimum class size average across the 7 grades.
that would work,
That would be
So that
better,
doesn't-
yeah.
that would work.
Because it does, the all makes it sound like all of them have to.
Like each one.
Yeah.
Like,
Collectively, you could even add another qualified, you know, or.
Me too.
Okay. And
I
we
think
can,
across the 7 grades I think that'll make sense to most people that
Yeah.
are reading it.
okay.
And if people really want to know, they can read our minutes, because Charlene is going to
There we go.
write that in there.
Charlene's
That's
gonna-
the interpretation of what we're saying.
Right.
So I don't know, Derek, if you have to accept that or what we have to do with that, but it's a wording change.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment,
Thank you.
so we don't have to do
I
anything
agree,
else.
definitely.
you're a friendly guy.
Do you guys have something to say?
No, we're just being positive.
Okay. Positive to Okay, so, any other changes, questions, comments regarding this? We have talked about it for like 4 months now.
We have.
Yes.
It's been very
But it's
thoughtful.
very important and it's
It
crucial.
will have to come back
So-
to you one more time, because this is,
First.
don't you think, or do you think this is not significantly different?
No, it's good. All we've done is 2 small changes, so I don't think
don't
it's
think-
significantly different.
is
I mean,
this-
the blue,
From the,
Oh.
before.
Unless your intention
It is-
was what Bonnie said, I don't think that we
I
need
don't,
this
I
yet.
don't think so.
Okay,
No, it was
because
Intention
it was a
was not that.
it was to
clarification.
clean up the language so
Right.
that this was understood. So this
Right.
is our final reading.
Yes.
Is this your final answer?
Does that mean that we use this at our annual meeting?
We could have it up there.
If
so
it's-
we could, you know, yeah.
If it comes
Yeah, we
up?
should.
Yep, absolutely. Yep,
I was
but
hoping
we
that
have
we,
to approve it first.
yeah, I was hoping that we could have this available at that, soon.
Great.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, and I actually wanted to make sure we had something before we sit in a board, because we are gonna have a
Right.
bunch of new members.
Good, it'd be nice to have that nailed down.
Yep. So, not hearing any other concerns, questions, comments, we'll go to vote. All those in favor of the school viability guidelines as changed and recommended by Derek and seconded by someone? Signify by saying aye.
Matt.
Aye.
Aye.
Alright, and all those
Aye.
opposed? Okay, we have passed our class size viability problem.
That's so exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Now the work begins.
All right, Hawk Hill proposed bylaws.
So you had asked for some minor
Some minor
changes.
changes.
Minor
This
changes.
is your second reading.
Yep,
Yep, we had talked about it earlier, we made some changes, and just needed them approved.
And you'll have to then address the management plan after this.
Yes, we're gonna have to revisit the management plan. There's several portions that we should update, this being one of them.
so let's get a motion on the table first. if
So
we
moved.
could. Okay, second, someone?
Second.
Second, okay. So discussion, so there's some issues around the management plan that obviously needs to be taken care of, but this is our
Updated.
first step,
This is the first step
okay?
in developing some bylaws for the group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody have any discussion, questions, concerns for Derek, since he helped draft this?
Bless you.
Bless you. All right, so mainly the major changes, just for anybody who didn't watch our last meeting regarding this, we changed it from talking about the schools specifically to, saying Brandon, Pittsford, Otter Creek Academy, to actually the towns of Brandon, Goshen, Pittsford, Leicester, Sudbury, and Whiting. And then, was there any other major change?
No.
I think that was really.
No, that's it.
Okay, so, hearing nothing from anyone, all those in favor of the new proposed bylaws for the Hawk Hill Committee, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Hawk Hill.
Congratulations again.
Wow, look at that.
Lori, can I make a comment before you
Yes.
move on? I'd just like to thank you, Derek, for your active involvement. You certainly have put a lot of time into this beyond the normal responsibilities of a school board member, and I just want to thank you for that.
Second.
Third. Ah, Jinx, blackout.
We'll,
You owe me some?
hopefully, we'll have a meeting on March 9th. We may have some information on grant approval or denial by then, I'm not sure.
One way or the other, huh?
One way or the other. We've got 2 grants out there that we're waiting to hear from.
Becky, do you want to take us through the acceptance of the superintendent evaluation?
Oh, I would love to.
Okay. Since you just did that, do you need a couple hours ago?
I don't need to see the, so there were 9 of the 14 administrators and 12 of the 18 school board members who filled it out. In all of the 5 areas, there was lots of positive feedback. There was only 1 or 2 pie, charts out of all of the questions you can ask that were 66% often, and of that, the 37 that was left, it was I don't knows. There was never any nevers. Most of them were at least 80% and above. There were a lot of 100% actually. So then we took the general comments, which is really where you get a lot of your information from.
Detail.
And the accomplishments, I guess I do need to see it to say that part. I don't have that memorized. Let's see, I won't read everything, but folks commented on the task force and looking into the future of our schools. Right-sizing the district through the budget process last year, taking advantage of the benefits of Act 46 and resulting in better equity programming across the SU, and use of data in instructional planning. pressing concerns, which was really interesting, because when Brenda and I brought it to Jean, she already had a list of like, yep, these are the things I'm gonna work on, or we are working on and looking at. So, and I wanna say that these are both of the successes and concerns are not, it's a district-wide stuff, so those were comments, general comments, not general comments about Jean herself. But the concerns were just increasing costs of health insurance for educators, continuing to work on establishing clarity on roles of superintendent and the board, shortages of staff for transportation, custodial and substitutes, continued focus on social emotional needs of trauma impacted students, and continued focus on alignment of MTSS and PBIS, which is multi-tiered system of support, and PBIS.
Positive behavior intervention and support.
Overall problem of the declining population, increasing costs and limited resources, and unknowns for Montpelier. So those are the concerns that were noted. So the overall finding indicate, once again, we're fortunate to have such a skilled leader who continues to move our organization forward in a positive manner during her tenure here in our union. The evaluation is evidence that a majority of the respondents' answers were often with a minimal, sometimes. So she got high marks from all of us. And we then did, in the Rutland Northeast meeting, offer our, extended the contract, so another 3 years, right? So a year from now is really basically what we did, is added on another year from what we already have. And Jean, we all accepted, so.
Isn't it right?
Fantastic.
Happily accepted.
We
Thank
weren't
you.
gonna like not accept, you know, she was. So, okay, thank you. Moving on, superintendent's informational report.
So a couple of things I want to bring to your attention. The RNESU board did approve signing on to the Jewel lawsuit. The information is in your report here. A class action lawsuit against Jewel for the adverse impact on students and the time and resources of the school. I do want to bring to your attention that we have received notification from the Agency of Education that last year's SBAC assessment, actually probably longer than that, but they were looking at last year, that we are not in compliance with the participation requirement of 95% of our students participating at the high school, middle school, high school, in the SBAC. I do know as well that this is also partially contributing to our extremely low scores on SBAC, because when we have a large number of students opting out, it skews. It's difficult to know what our scores really are. It skews it. I can't say if it's better or worse if those students participated. I don't know. They didn't participate, but it makes the scores not valid. We do have a culture within our communities of opting out of the testing, and so I'm bringing this to your attention quite publicly, because unless we receive 95% participation, we potentially will lose our federal dollars, which is going to hit the wallet of our taxpayers. And those federal dollars are used primarily for the academic intervention system for our students. So we have developed a plan. The high school administration and curriculum director and I sat down and developed a plan to improve our participation. The Agency of Education has accepted that plan, reviewed and accepted it. And anything that you can also do to help parents understand that it really is important to participate in the testing. I don't think we're going to hit 95% the first year. It's just not the culture of our communities. But it is important. It does tell us how we are doing, how things are going, and it will also impact our federal funding.
Great.
I also.
Oh, Bonnie has a
yeah.
question.
Jean, what is the process for middle and high schoolers opting out? How easy or hard is it for them?
Very easy.
What do they need to do?
Parents call.
They call? They don't have to write?
More often, they either call or they write. We usually ask for it in writing, a follow-up in writing, but yeah. Or the parents don't send the child to school for quite a period of time. Because
Yeah, I was going to say,
testing
that's a
goes on.
lot of school missed. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah. And it is a pretty significant number here.
Yeah, that 57 in mathematics performance, that's that's barely half of our kids are taking it.
Yeah, right. I also wanted to point out that our e-finance software conversion has been going as smoothly as it can, thanks to Brenda Fleming and her staff. She's been working hard on this since the summer, and we went live on January 1st with payroll. And just this month, we were able to roll out an employee online system where employees could check all of their information, which they never had before. The e-finance system is not something we would have chosen. It's actually delayed about 10 years from the system we were using for e-finance, but it is state mandated to move towards it. We're in the third cohort moving towards it. You may have recently seen the Vermont Digger article of another school district that had incredible nightmares around it, the staff getting paid $8 to $8,000 we're not having that. But it also, between this, negotiations, and the budget, that office is straight out. So you do not have a monthly financial report this month. We're not able to run the report yet for this month. We will for next month going forward. There are steps we have to do as we roll out the e-finance, and that was not the priority. The priority was correct payment, correct W-2s. Those were the priority. So you'll be back online next month. R&ESU calendar is finalized in this packet. I believe it's also on the web for next school year. And it is an odd year. Some people aren't happy. Labor Day is as late as it possibly can be, September 7th, which means that instead of the traditional 3-day, 4-day, 5-day startup, we're doing a 3-day, 5-day, 4-day, 5-day, because we still wanted to start, we originally still wanted to start in August so that we could still get out in June. So it's 1 year glitch like that. Legislatively, you can read the legislative update, but I would just add to it that I am testifying in front of the House Governmental Affairs Committee this Friday on a bill that they're considering which would allow teachers to break contract at any time they wanted without any consequences. Makes no sense. A contract is a legally binding agreement on both sides, and we do allow a great deal of flexibility up through the beginning of June. And after June, if there's a unique circumstance, in particular part-time going to full-time, somebody moving into a promotion, like from a teacher to a teacher leader or assistant principal, or if there's a specific family reason, we have allowed it. But in general, we don't. And we just experienced last year having 2 teachers leave in July, one of whom was replaced by a teacher on a provisional. The other one was not replaced. We could not find a math teacher. And so this year, you may recall, you have 4 different teachers at the high school giving up their planning time to teach an extra section of math because we could not find a math teacher. Again, in our weakest area of academics. So there is a significant impact on the timing. But through the hiring season, we're incredibly flexible, and we allow the people the time they need to look at what's out there and make decisions. So that's what my testimony basically will say, against the idea of just totally ignoring contracts.
What's the sense of having a contract if
Well,
you
exactly.
break it?
Exactly. It's a pretty one-sided contract, because we can't change
Yeah.
our mind.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't really mean that, so.
Huh.
There are a number of behavioral concerns that I just wanted to bring you up to speed in. And I'm bringing in an attorney into the high school next Friday to do some specific investigative trainings with high school administration and staff and myself. And I also wanted to make sure that you were aware of the risk assessment team that apparently made it to the paper before I made you aware of it. So there is some information in the superintendent's report if you have any other questions. Our social emotional learning coach has been fabulous. She's getting into every school and into classrooms and really helping us to change the way we're really helping us to coach the teachers and how we're working with students. Teachers have raised concerns to me about behaviors in the classroom and the impact of trauma in their classroom and how it's much more significant, it feels like, this year than even before. So this is, I would add this as one of the major things that we need to be focusing on in this district. Not just in this district, sadly. The rest of it you can read.
Great.
Oh, I think there is one more thing. Sorry. We also have been given the opportunity to send a team of 3 to the AASA Youth Apprenticeship Summit in Chicago, April 2nd and 3rd, with scholarship deferring the cost of travel and covering 2 nights for a hotel for a superintendent and 2 team members. Brenda Hummel from the Barstow Board would like to attend. Lori said that I could throw it out to this board if anybody is interested. It backs up to the National School Board Association Conference. So if you went to the 2nd and 3rd, you might want to stay for the 4th and attend that conference as well. And if nobody from this board wishes to go, then I will probably next go to the high school and see if there anyone on administration, which is a little light right now, or a couple of the teachers who are doing the student voice aspect would like to participate. But if you are interested, we have to reserve our spot by March 1st, and they're only accepting 53-person teams, so we want to get our spot in. So if anyone's interested, I'm happy to show this to you.
Okay, thank you.
No, I just want to make a comment. Jean, going back to the major projects that the business office is trying to manage all at once, is there anything the board can do to help that? Because I know how difficult those tasks can be and how important they are that they're right and how they can burn people up. So I don't know what it might be, but is there
Thank you.
anything we can do?
Thank you. I will pass on that support. You know, I think that, I can tell you they're hopping. I think patience and understanding and trying to, as we're trying to communicate what's happening. And if Brenda indicates a need for any short-term support, I've been providing that as the need comes up, so. But thank you.
You're welcome.
We can let the legislature know if you want us to
Yeah.
change it back.
It's, not now.
No, not now. It'd be more work.
No, we bit the apple now, so.
Okay, so we're stuck with it?
Yeah, but tell them not to do that again.
Yes, Derek.
Jean,
Yeah.
in a subsequent superintendent's report, could you update us around the restorative justice
Yes.
project? Because our district is one of, 3 in the state that are moving forward with it?
We are, right, and
And-
we have a restorative justice team, so sure, I would be happy to do that.
Just see where that's at.
Yeah,
with
and
the
I
different
touch
schools.
upon it in here, but not in detail.
Right, thank you.
Great. Anything else for Dean? Okay, moving on. Consent agenda. So, I'm gonna pull the verdict trust off
Okay.
of that.
You wanna wait till next time?
No, I want everyone to actually discuss it.
Okay, and I have detail on that.
So,
that
yep,
you can pass
that's
out.
why I saw that. So, if everybody's okay with it, we can do the consent agenda, and we'll do the verdict, fiscal report after.
I have a minute thing.
Okay,
I wasn't present, but I was,
that's okay.
Counted
So,
present.
Oh, which minutes?
it's January 15th, January something.
Okay.
I wasn't there. I wanted to be there. Wish I was there.
Great.
You wanted to
Can I
be.
get a, motion for the consent agenda minus the trust?
So
account?
moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay. And you've noted that there's a mistake, so we're gonna fix that. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. So, the Board of Trust calendar year activity report, instead of just blessing it and moving on, I thought it was important that everybody get to look at this, because we always talk about the Board of Trust, we also talk about the ELE fund, and not everyone, knows what's in there, we just know that there's money. So it's important that you see what the fund balance is. This is a fiscal year, of course. The school payment is to us for the upgrades that are being done at the local school. There's always investment fees to the management, I think it's UBS or whoever it is. And then the legal costs, that was mainly around our little, jaunt regarding who is in charge of saying who can do what. So, and I thought it was important that.
That was your portion.
Yeah, the legal cost of $17,000 seemed excessive, and of course, we also paid around $17,000 of our own money to make this happen, and hopefully that won't happen again. And I just wanted to make that known to the public that that won't be used for students. So anyway, any other discussion around this? I do need a motion to approve, which I didn't ask for, so I apologize.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion regarding the Breakout Trust Fund? It's rather healthy. I mean, there's definitely some money in there, so that's good.
It's healthy, but $32,000 is $32,000.
Yep. So, okay, so all those in favor of the Breakout Trust fiscal year report, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. We have approved the fiscal year report. All right, we don't have anything going on for global ends or executive limitations or board management delegation tonight because we knew we were doing other stuff. So, a couple things I want to do before we talk about next steps. First of all, I would like to send our thanks. I think we need to have a rousing hand of applause for Emily Nelson and Matt Philo and John Rasmussen, who is not here, as they will not be returning to us at our next scheduled board meeting, and we will really miss you guys.
Are you attending the annual meeting? Because we have a
I
little
certainly
something.
planned
Good.
to attend the
Okay, good.
annual meeting.
Okay, good. So we will have something for you there.
Lori,
Yes.
on that note, is this a good time to let the public know? No? Okay.
No, we have to stay neutral, so they should.
No, just that about people, okay, never mind.
We
Who's
can-
running and who's not? I
Are
mean,
there
Yeah,
any,
that
are there
the-
any positions no one's running for?
Just
We have
what
4
the status
seats.
is.
So we can talk about the
Yeah.
seats that are open,
That's
not
what I meant.
necessarily who
Yeah,
No.
who's running for them. So there are 4 seats that are open. There's the Leicester seat, that currently is Angela Ouellette's. And then there is the Brandon seat that is being vacated by John Rasmussen. And then there are 2 at-large positions that are being vacated by Matt and Emily, respectively. The at-large can come from any town. It does not have to come from any particular town. And at this point, because
The deadline is
the
passed.
deadline is passed, it's really just running a write-in campaign. So talk to the reporter, get some, put it on Facebook or Front Porch Forum that you
Not
want
for
to run.
all the
So are there positions for which
You
no one
can
is
write
running?
in on it.
Yes, currently the Brandon position there's no one running for, and there is no one for the
One of the at-large?
at-large.
For both of the at-large or one of the
Just
at-large?
one. One of them does have someone running who
Okay.
got their information.
So we have 2 positions for whom no one's running right now?
That's right.
All right, thank you.
Okay? So thank you for bringing that up. Hopefully they might be at the next meeting so that they can introduce themselves. So our next board meeting is our annual meeting, which is next Wednesday, right?
Yep.
February 26th. It will be here at Otter Valley in the auditorium. It starts at 6:30. And then our next scheduled meeting would be March 4th, but we are only going to do that for orientation of new board members. So you guys get the night off unless you want to come and join us. And so then after that, our next scheduled board meeting will be here March 18th, which will be our reorganization. So anything else that anyone wants to say before we adjourn? Okay, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
Oh, so you don't want, are we not gonna set the community meeting date tonight?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
We'll do it.
So moved.
with the new board.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Okay.
Then we are out at 8:02.